The Atlantic Council's birth in 1961 was prompted by one of the most dangerous moments of the Cold War.
It's a bomb. Duck and cover.
It was the inaugural year of the youngest president ever elected in America, John F. Kennedy.
The assault has begun on the dictatorship of Fidel Castro.
Fast forward to the Bay of Pigs in April, fast forward to June, Superpower Summit in Vienna, and then in August you have the construction of the Berlin Wall, which divided the free and unfree worlds for a further 3 decades. The Atlantic Council came together at an inflection point in history. There was a global ideological struggle. There was a showdown of the 2 great superpowers of their day, and some of the great foreign policy actors came together and said, we have to make sense of this. We have to act in common purpose to shape a better future.
In the cities, police and civil defense teams clear the streets.
I think it was a time when we were really beset, and all with the backdrop of these 2 powers acquiring nuclear weapons at an extremely rapid pace. And so where was all this heading?
NATO is one of the best and the earliest examples of cooperation between Western Europe and North America.
It had psychological support, but people didn't know that much about it. And this was an attempt to provide intellectual support, if you will, for the military program of containment. And the council was extremely successful. And then the Cold War ended.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
I'm Peter Jennings in New York just a short while ago. Astonishing news from East Germany, where the East German authorities have said, in essence, that the Berlin Wall doesn't mean anything anymore.
People began to say, well, you know, what's the Atlantic Council for anymore? So I thought, organized as it is around an idea of a community, we ought to remake it and focus it on the problems of the future. The pattern of the world is very different now than it was in the Cold War. We need to navigate through this very difficult world. And to me, the instrument to help us do that is the Atlantic Council.
How do we integrate China? How do we deal with the nuclear weapons aspirations of Iran? How do you wrestle with climate change? How do you wrestle with global financial instability? Somebody has to be the glue that holds this all together. We're dramatically remaking our institution for the future. 6 of our 10 programs and centers have been created in the past 5 years and are aimed squarely at this challenging world. These are new developments recognizing that the Atlantic community can't just be about itself any longer. It has to be about reshaping the world and working with our global friends to reshape the world.
I hope the Atlantic Council will help us find an anchor in this world and do it successfully.
The historic moment now is as important as it was in 1918, 1945, 1989. We have to recognize this historic moment. We are an activist organization that's going on the offensive for the issues that we care about and with the partners that are important to us to make sure that we have a better global future.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Frederick Kemp, President and CEO of the Atlantic Council.
On behalf of the Atlantic Council, I am honored to welcome you to our 5th Annual Freedom Awards dinner. Before we get started with the official program, I do want to hand the podium over to a Freedom Awardee of 2 years ago, Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski. We're proud that he's with us. I want to give one quote from him from a speech in front of the American Jewish Committee a couple of weeks ago in Washington, which captures the ethos of this dinner, of the Wroclaw Global Forum, and of the Atlantic Council. Quote from Minister Sikorski: "Europe has unfinished business. Ideas and policies that won the Cold War are under pressure, especially to the east of our borders. Dictatorship in Belarus, corruption in Ukraine, frozen conflicts in the Southern Caucasus, Russia, a chapter in itself. EU-US teamwork and leadership remain the only way to make a difference. We need to stand tall, to be proud of what makes us strong, prosperous, and stable. Unquote. Thank you very much for that inspiration, Foreign Minister Sikorski, and please come to the podium.
Well, thank you, Fred, for reminding everyone of our challenges. And thank you for showing images of 1989, which was a good year for Poland and a good year for me personally. I'm always reminded what I did in 1989 on 4th of June, which was the day of the first partially free Polish election. I was actually in Angola with some guerrillas doing an ambush on some communists. But 89 was a really good year because I recovered my country, I met my wife, and I started rebuilding my house in Poland. And I think from that perspective, we are very fortunate to have here with us the hero of that year, Prime Minister Tadeusz Mazowiecki. And it's people like him and what they achieved in 1989. And I'll tell you frankly, I was a critic of some of what was happening in 1989. But after 20 years, I think I appreciate more what the risks were and what the opportunities we took advantage of. But I think it was the inspiration of that year, for once, Poland's bloodless victory and a peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy and from a command economy to a free economy that inspires us today to make Poland the home of democracy exporting institutions. And I'm very proud, and as foreign minister have given support to ODIHR, the arm of OSCE that supports and supervises elections all around the world, to the permanent secretariat of the Community of Democracies, and I think we have the General Secretary of the Community of Democracies with us as well. There she is. To the other institutions that try to support democracy in our eastern neighborhood. Poland was instrumental in launching Eastern Partnership. And the new baby of the European community, the European Endowment for Democracy, which is just starting with a budget of 28 million, which is a child of the Polish presidency of the European Union, unashamedly modeled on the American original, the National Endowment for Democracy. And we have this, the Wroclaw Global Forum, which I hope will continue to be an important venue for debate between Europe and the United States. Thank you very much for coming to Wrocław, and I hope we'll honor shortly those who fight for freedom today, the kind of freedom that we regained 20-some years ago and that we feel we've made good use of. Good luck to the countries, to Pakistan, to others who are struggling for freedom today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Sikorski. I want to now turn the stage for a greeting on behalf of the Atlantic Council Board and actually the executive committee of the board, one of the most esteemed and active board directors of the Atlantic Council, former National Security Advisor Steve Hadley. He's one of 24 individuals to have served the President of the United States as National Security Advisor. But he hasn't just done so for the administration of President George W. Bush, but he was called upon by presidents before then and after then for his advice. His remarkable accomplishments are too long to list here. I'm not going to. He wouldn't want me to. He's too modest. So I am going to turn the stage over to someone whose career has given him a highly sophisticated understanding of how democracy, human rights, and the rule of law shape the security and prosperity across the globe, as any of you who heard him on 2 panels today can attest. Steve Hadley.
Good evening. The Freedom Awards were inaugurated in 2009 on the 20th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. These awards honor exceptional individuals and organizations that fight for freedom around the world. Tonight, we are recognizing key figures and institutions that have changed the course of history with their courageous defense of democracy and human rights. Wroclaw became the award's European home in 2010, given Poland's own historic democratic transition and key role in spreading the message of freedom today. The Polish people understand so well that showing solidarity with the people like the ones we are honoring tonight is critical in affirming that these courageous individuals do not stand alone. The Council presents these awards because at the core of the Council's mission is a strong transatlantic partnership. And ultimately, what makes this partnership strong is the unwavering foundation on which it stands, a foundation built on the values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. Whether the Council is looking at stability in the Middle East or the shifting energy landscape in Latin America, its work is always guided by these central principles because freedom is inextricably tied to both international security and economic prosperity. By hosting these awards on an annual basis, the Council is proud to bring together a community of business leaders, policymakers, and activists who feel strongly about the fight for freedom around the world. And it is proud to honor those who not only yearn for freedom, but have the strength and courage to make it a reality for all mankind. Thank you.
Please, all of you should begin to eat, or we won't get through the evening, and you'll be starving. And it's better to eat and clink your forks and knives while I'm talking than when other more important people are talking. I want to thank you for joining us this special evening when we recognize those who courageously fight freedom and democracy in the world. I want to make a couple of thanks before we get started. Most importantly, I want to thank our host, Mayor Dudkiewicz. Dziękuję bardzo to you and your team for providing the perfect venue for this dinner. Mayor, we work with partners all over the world, and I can say without any exaggeration that we've never worked for a more pleasant, effective, and efficient team than that led by Magda Piasecka. And it shows us why Wrocław is such a successful and entrepreneurial city. So thank you very much. I want to thank our knowledge partners and our partners in everything in the Wrocław Global Forum, the PISM, and particularly Marcin Zaborowski and Anna Zelenska-Rakowicz, who have been so helpful to us and have given the forum today so much of the intellectual content that you've come to me and thanked me for during the case of the day. Also, please pass on our thanks, march on to Prime Minister Bilecki, and of course, Jerzy Kominski, who's with us tonight. Thank you so much to PISM. I do want to thank Maciej Witucki, who was there from the very beginning, our lead board member for Poland, and one of the visionaries behind this whole project, with the mayor, and with Lee Feinstein, the former ambassador, and with the Atlantic Council. Maciej, thank you so much. We have two International Advisory Board members here tonight as well. I want to give a real thanks for you being here. Thank you to Jan Kulczyk and Prime Minister Shawkat Aziz. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And then aside from Steve Hadley, we have three board members here. I already mentioned Maciej, but John Schmitz and Walt Slocum, thank you as well for being here. Most importantly now, I want to thank the two co-chairs, the honorary co-chairs of this evening, the U.S. Ambassador to Poland, Steve Mull, and Poland's Ambassador to the U.S., Ryszard Schnepf, for serving as co-chairs and for their valuable guidance on this initiative. Ambassador Schnepf, I'm delighted you could be here with us tonight. It's an honor to have you with us and having come across the Atlantic to be here. Thank you. And though Ambassador Mull couldn't be here, his son, I believe, is graduating, may even be tonight. We're delighted to have Doug Green, Deputy Chief of the Mission, representing the embassy. Thank you so much. We launched Bronisław Geremek Lecture in Washington a couple of years back. I did it in conjunction with the embassy and then the Ambassador Kupecki, and of course, a member of the staff of the Atlantic Council at that time, now at the Foreign Ministry, Michał Syfianek. So let me just quote Bronisław Geremek because it captures what we're doing tonight. Quote Bronisław Geremek, "The core of the Solidarity movement was the dream of freedom, of democracy, understood as the innate right of every human being to decide his or her own fate and to share responsibility for the fate of the nation." That's why we're here tonight. Tamika Tillman from the State Department today said there has not been a democratic transition, successful democratic transition, where any country has done it on its own. We're a community of influence to help this story go along. Tonight, we will honor 4 extraordinary individuals and organizations for their contributions to advancing the cause of freedom and democracy around the world. I'll briefly tell you how the evening will run, and then leave it to the stars of the evening and the people we want to address. This evening will first honor His Excellency Tadeusz Mazowiecki, former Prime Minister of Poland, for enacting landmark democratic reforms that transformed not only Poland, but also initiated a wave of change across the region. His dedication to the transformation of his country at such a crucial moment for the entire region has had an enduring impact on Poland's modern history. He will be introduced for his award by Maciej Witucki, our lead board member in Poland. 2013 will also mark, this year, also marks the advent of the Council's inaugural Diplomat for Freedom Award, presented posthumously to Mark Palmer, former U.S. Ambassador to Hungary. His passion and dedication proved how diplomacy can be an active tool to animate the values of democracy and freedom. He died earlier this year. His wife, Sushma Palmer, who was so much of the story of his success in promoting these issues, will accept the award, and the award will be presented by the great Hungarian entrepreneur and also a champion of democracy, Sándor Démyan. After the dinner break, we'll present an award to the European Humanities University in Lithuania for its unwavering commitment to democracy in Belarus by providing young Belarusian students with a free and democratic environment to pursue their education. Joschka Fischer today said democracy requires Democrats, and that's what this university is doing. The EHU award will be accepted by Rector Anatoly Mikhailov, along with 2 current students of the university and an alumna. And finally, we will salute Malala Yousafzai, the young Pakistani activist whose courage to speak out against corruption and inequality, despite her own life being put at risk, is an inspiration to activists worldwide. Malala will accept her award via video message, and her father will represent her here tonight. The introduction will be made by former Prime Minister to Pakistan, Shaukat Aziz, a member of our International Advisory Board. It is now an honor to welcome to the stage Ambassador Schnepf, as I said, one of the evening's co-chairs and a great supporter of this initiative, a close friend of the Atlantic Council, and he has played an instrumental role in our annual Bronislaw Goremek Lecture in Washington. Ambassador Schnepf.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good evening. I am delighted to be here in Wrocław tonight, the capital of the global ideas. Before I make some remarks on the Polish-American relations, let me congratulate Fred Kempe, President of the Atlantic Council, and Marcin Zaborowski, Director of the Polish Institute of International Affairs, for organizing yet another excellent event and gathering such remarkable speakers in one of the most attractive cities in the world. It is an honor to address you with so many distinguished guests present here and such outstanding leaders as Rafał Dudkiewicz, Mayor of Wrocław, and Steve Hadley, former National Security Advisor to the President of the United States. Let me also extend warm welcome to my boss, Radek Sikorski, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and to the very special Ambassador of Poland in the global world, Dr. Jan Kulczyk. It is a special privilege for me to attend this event, which will honor some extraordinary people who has never ceased in their efforts to change the world around us for the better one. And I am particularly proud that one of them is my personal hero, a man who led Poland through challenges of transformation, the first Prime Minister of free Poland, Tadeusz Mazowiecki. As you might read, I am, together with the US Ambassador Steve Mull, a co-chair of this event. I spoke last week with Steve, who regretted he couldn't join us tonight. But at the same time, he promised to accept me to his singing team next Christmas if I do a good job. So I try. But I will not sing tonight. Now permit me to switch to Polish, since after all, I am the Polish ambassador and on a Polish soil. Panie I Panowie, Polska I Stany Zjednoczone są przyjaciółmi.
The United States have been friends and allies. We have many common achievements and plans for the future. Please allow me that I will introduce to you what Steve and myself is expecting in the nearest future relating to the 3 pillars of our cooperation: safety, security, democracy, and economy. Our cooperation in terms of security is a quite clear message for the rest of our neighborhood. It is with pleasure that we accepted the first American battalions here in Poland, in Łask, aviation detachment training and military steadfast training will be a value added not only for Poland but also for the whole NATO. The anti-missile shields will also serve us, but also America and the Europeans. We are fighting in Afghanistan together, and there we achieve successes, but also, however, we collect victims there. Do I have to say anything more? The alliance between Poland and the United States has been historical and traditional. Independent of the political option, the American administration has always striven for the independence of Poland. That's why we believe that the plans of the American installation of the anti-missile protection shield will be realized, as it has been promised many times by high officials in the US administration. What chances do we have? What opportunities do we have for the economic development? This is what I was convinced when visiting the Silicon Valley. Polish IT companies are selling software for $1 billion already to the United States. This is mainly computer games, and I'm quite scared to think what will happen when Wiedźmin will actually ride a horse in the American prairie. But seriously, I am sure that the future of the United States, as well as that of the European Union, will depend on our agreements. The transatlantic trade agreements and investment agreements will be the driving force for the trade globally, and this will be a template for the rest of the world. I can assure you that the Polish diplomacy will be committed to this task, and I hope that also the investors and the private sector will follow us. Solidarity and Lech Wałęsa made it possible for the democracy to be our trading brand. Today, the world knows that our way was successful, and we are now sharing it for free with the others, as did those when we were in need. That's why, based on the American models, we created the European Endowment for Democracy. Together with the United States, we also created the Community for Cooperation with the seat in Warsaw. Thanks to this organization, the societies in Eastern Europe, in Asia, in Africa may get to know how to construct free media or how to carry out free elections, how important it is to have good human relations in democracy. This is, there is no need to convince you of it, but now a few words about visa permits for the Poles. The work going on now in Congress is a historical chance for us, but please remember, it is not only a chance for the Poles, but also for the United States. That's why I'm quite optimistic, and I hope that in the war between the opponents and the supporters of the Act, we will win. Let me say more, and Mr. Minister will confirm. I have entered a bid with Mr. Sikorski, who is a little bit more pessimistic in this matter. However, he assured me that he is quite willing to lose this bid. This today's meeting has had a lot of achievements, and I'm quite sure of one thing. Wrocław Global Forum will help our friends understand that the present Poland, is not only a country of proud history, but also it's a modern and open country, a place where it is worthwhile to be. I wish you quite a lot of impressions. Thank you very much, Milt.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Maciej Witucki, CEO of Orange Polska.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am so much missing those teleprompters from the last year, so if I miss anything, it's because of the technology. So, the Atlantic Council was initiated, the Freedom Award was initiated in 2009, so the 20th anniversary of the Berlin Wall falling down. Today, we have an exceptional opportunity to link this award with a person who was in the middle of those historical events, and the person who is still remaining an inspiration for the future generations. It was in Krzyżowa, 50 kilometers from Wrocław, in November '89, that we recall for an iconic picture of Helmut Kohl and Tadeusz Mazowiecki embracing each other as a symbol of reconciliation between Poland and the unifying Germany. The same days, the wall in Berlin was turning down. And despite the symbolic meaning of Krzyżowa, the course of the reconciliation between Poland and Germany was still a long and difficult process. But this gesture between Helmut Kohl and Tadeusz Mazowiecki laid a foundation for the future, and finally the European spirit prevailed on the mistrust. In August 1992, 2 years after resigning from the premiership, Tadeusz Mazowiecki accepted an appointment as a special representative of the United Nations in the Yugoslavian conflict. For nearly 3 years, he investigated in the field, publishing 18 reports. He was, at the beginning, he was the sponsor of many UN initiatives in the war, notably the creation of the safe areas around Muslim enclaves in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Being a man of compromise, Tadeusz Mazowiecki knew where the limits of the concessions are. First time in the history of the United Nations, as a voice of protest, Tadeusz Mazowiecki announced he can no longer carry his mission, saying, I quote, "I treat my resignation precisely as a protest against the helplessness and against the reconciliation with this helplessness." His reaction and words were unfortunately prophetic for the zone of Balkans. Tadeusz Mazowiecki, who was first in 42 years non-communist Prime Minister of Poland, led us in the times of so-called revolution, a hybrid of revolution and evolution, into a new democratic Poland we have today. The leadership in that period of transformation required a man with many virtues. Built on his experience in the Solidarity movement, as is one of the founding fathers, along with Lech Wałęsa, Mazowiecki is a perfect example and proof that intellectuals must be involved in politics. He was always active and engaged. As a journalist, Tadeusz Mazowiecki entered with passion there where he could actively play part in the heated debates. Now we can allow ourselves to have a moment of joy and a moment of pride, to raise a glass of champagne at the anniversary of the first free elections in Poland on the 4th June 1989, and first non-communist government. For us, Tadeusz Mazowiecki embodies that moment of change, and he can be proud of what he achieved. Moreover, hardly anybody allows him to take a break from his active life until today. President Komorowski is happy to have him at his side as a mentor and strategic advisor. We owe Tadeusz Mazowiecki a lot these days, not only as the architect of freedom in Poland and Europe, but also for shaping our today's reality. Ladies and gentlemen, talking about freedom, we sometimes turn the metaphoric of being free as a bird. The bird is not free just because the bird is traversing the unlimited space, but for the sense of direction, skills, and ability to fly. In this sense, Mr. Tadeusz Mazowiecki, through his life, his achievements, his skills and courage, show to Poles how to be free, how to fly. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great privilege and honor to present the 2013 Atlantic Council Freedom Award. Please welcome to the stage Prime Minister Tadeusz Mazowiecki. Panie Premierze.
Well, I'm going to speak Polish. I would like to thank wholeheartedly for this distinction. I would like to thank the Atlantic Council. I keep it in high esteem. Thank you very much, Mayor of Wrocław. Congratulations to you. The fact that the Wrocław Global Forum, a global forum, is held here in Wrocław, so important and so exciting in terms of debates. I appreciate the fact that I've been awarded a Freedom Award. Freedom is the highest value for any human, for man, for an individual, but not only for an individual, it's also the highest value for nations. In 1989, and it all started in 1980, via the great movement of solidarity. In 1989, we recovered something we were deprived in 1945. We recovered our freedom, the right to decide on ourselves. And thanks to that, we can develop in a free world, and our progress can be judged by you as you walk along the streets of Wrocław. Poland, very much like Wrocław, has changed dramatically. Today, after the autumn of people in 1989, we have various waves of freedom on different continents, and we are usually asked for advice, for guidelines. We are asked by representatives of those movements and nations. I keep saying that they should learn their lesson, and they should learn from our experience. And I shall repeat saying that use our experience and learn your lesson. We are happy to see the wave of freedom, but at the same time we're concerned because some developments result in violence, even though they are expression of fight against violence. We are concerned in any persecution for religious regions, in particular Christians in some countries. So those of you who expect advice from us, recommendations, the most important thing we can tell you is that through our fight for freedom, if we want freedom to mean progress, you can't really get into the shoes of those people who you've replaced, who you toppled. You need to create your new world, and this is conditional for the progress in history. These are my wishes to all those nations. Thank you very much for the award. Congratulations to the other laureates. And congratulations on your debates. We are obliged and obligated. It's a strong bond for us because of European Union, because of NATO, because of the Atlantic Council. I hope that you feel at home here, that you understand better us. And the fact that you award Fight for Freedom, I would like to thank you for that. It was my life and the history, and I was in a way placed or positioned. I tried to do what I saw was my duty both in Poland and in Bosnia. I believe that anyone else in my position would have done the same. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. Sandor Demjan.
Jó estét kívánok mindenkinek! Abszolút megtiszteltetés számomra, hogy itt lehetek ma önökkel, és megoszthatom kedves barátom, kollégám, Mark Palmer nagykövet emlékét. Köszönöm az Atlanti Tanácsnak és Wroclaw Global Forum valamennyi szervezőjének, hogy erre
Thank you very much, the Atlantic Council. Thank you very much, all the contributors and organizers of the Wroclaw Global Forum. Mark was a typical example of how diplomacy may change the world. There are always valid, the values are always valid, the values that he supported, and we can still enjoy the fruit of this work. Mark was never concerned or never worried about leaving his office and join into certain activities that were necessary in order to force changes. The fall of the Berlin Wall and letting the East German refugees to Austria. That was part of Mark's effort. No one had to sacrifice their life to enjoy freedom. Mark's courage and Mark's commitment simply resulted in freedom to many people. It's a wonderful feeling when they actually felt that this burden was taken off their shoulders. Mark was very modest and he was one of the best diplomats of his time. I'm really proud to be able to show you this brief video about Mark and his achievements.
Diplomats always have to find their own way. As a diplomat, you have to think, what are your values? What are you willing to risk? You could, through peaceful resistance, you could bring about immense change in the world, and you could succeed where people thought it was impossible.
Born in 1941 on July 14th, Bastille Day in France, Mark believed he was destined to stand up to oppression and press for human rights.
An ambassador ought to be seen to be a friend of democracy and human rights. He's part of this struggle for progress and justice. He should think, gee, this is the single most exciting thing I can do. When people who have authority, if they're willing to stand with people who are fighting for justice peacefully, if an ambassador is willing to demonstrate, or at least be present at a trial, or in other ways show solidarity to dissidents, that makes an immense difference. Gandhi taught us that that's so critical, the feeling that you're together with a larger group of people and that history is on your side, that the legitimate authority figures in the world are with you.
As speechwriter for 3 presidents and 6 secretaries of state, Mark captured the promise of democracy and created not just policy, but history. His words helped to inspire hope and drive action, including the founding of the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy. Later, as an ambassador to Hungary, Mark stood in solidarity with those who embraced freedom and democracy.
One of the things that I did in Hungary in March of 1989 was actually to go out in the streets and march with the Democrats, with the Hungarian people. It was not viewed in a friendly way by the Communist Party leadership of Hungary, nor in Washington, where it was considered outrageous that I did it. But I think for the Hungarian people, it was good that they could see that they weren't alone. As a diplomat, you can play, often behind the scenes, a significant role in assuring a peaceful transition. And there can be no greater satisfaction for a diplomat in his life or her life than that.
With the support of George Soros and Hungarian businessman and philanthropist Sándor Demjan, Mark founded the International Management Center, the first Western-style management school in communist Eastern Europe. After the Berlin Wall fell, Mark brought his considerable energies to new ventures. Mark was instrumental in bringing both the free market and a free and independent press to the citizens of the Iron Curtain. As part of Central European Media Enterprises, or CME, Mark was behind the launch of Nova TV, described by the Financial Times as the most successful startup in television history. Today, CME stations reach over 50 million people throughout Central and Eastern Europe. A Tasmanian devil with a bow tie, Mark had boundless energy and enthusiasm. He fearlessly embraced opportunities to bring justice and hope to people who had little experience with either. With his trailblazing book, Breaking the Real Axis of Evil, Mark advised that U.S. foreign policy should make the worldwide promotion of democracy its top priority. Legislation based on this book led to the Advanced Democracy Act of 2007. Mark spent his last years creating tools to guide both the diplomatic corps and the military. Mark developed the Diplomat's Handbook together with Ambassador Jeremy Kinsman. The handbook has become an international guide for diplomats in supporting the transition to democracy in closed societies. Mark never stopped believing in the possibility of democracy and the role ambassadors could play in ensuring its arrival.
All the 60 peaceful revolutions that have taken place, people said were impossible and were not going to happen. The lesson is that embassies and governments need to work away at this and have confidence that it will happen.
Mark's life was more than the sum of his considerable professional accomplishments. It was also a life of humor and love, a life rich with friends, family, and most important, a life shared with his loving, brilliant, and always supportive wife, Sushma, the strong, enduring woman who both shaped Mark's legacy and was instrumental to its existence. Mark Palmer's life was filled with vision, passion, commitment, and determination. And it's not an overstatement to say that his efforts touched the lives of millions.
Looking back on my whole Foreign Service career, the greatest satisfaction was being a junior officer in Moscow at the height or the depth of communism there through to Hungary. To be part of that struggle for progress and justice is so satisfying for a diplomat. It's so much fun.
Minden kimagasló teljesítmény mögött van egy családi támogatás és háttér. Ezt Mark számára
all of us,
biztosította.
Mark was really supported by his family, in particular by Sushma Palmer. I would like to invite you to the stage and on behalf of your husband, take the award.
Good evening. Thank you, Sándor, so much for those eloquent remarks about Mark. Thank you, Fred Kemp, the Atlantic Council, Ambassadors Hadley, Mull, Schnepf, and others who've helped put this event together. I'm truly honored to be here this evening and to receive this award, the Diplomat for Freedom Award, on behalf of my late husband, Mark Palmer. If Mark had been here this evening, he would have been humbled and deeply touched and very proud. Thank you so much. You've seen this film about Mark. I just want to add a few personal comments. I met Mark in 1964, soon after he arrived on his first Foreign Service post in New Delhi. And on our first date, he was dressed in Indian garb, and he took me to the Tibetan monastery. We sat on the ground cross-legged, and we dined on yak soup. Of course, we weren't there for dinner. Mark was showing solidarity for his Tibetan colleagues in their struggle for independence from China. Mark was embedded in Indian culture and politics. He was on a first-name basis with leading members of parliament and already arguing with the then US Ambassador Chester Bowles on how best to improve Indo-US relations. But he also spent a lot of time with ordinary Indians. He volunteered at Mother Teresa's ashram for orphans and sick people. He was the guest of honor at shantytown weddings in Delhi. On his travels around India, he proudly showed villagers how American corn magically popped up, but he soon found out that the villagers could do it better. In a few months, Mark had learned more than I knew about my native country. And for the next half-century, he took me on an incredible journey that spanned continents, cultures, and languages. On our first post, at the height of the Cold War in Moscow, we spent most evenings at dissident theaters or with dissidents in their homes. Of course, this meant close encounters with the KGB, and I recall one incident when they grabbed him, shook him by the lapels, and threatened to beat him up. But Mark was unflappable. We felt much more at home in the relatively open societies of former Yugoslavia, and especially Hungary, where, as ambassador, Mark was close to Hungarian leaders and also to dissidents. But he was also a people's ambassador. He was called upon to judge beauty contests. He was voted one of the 10 most popular Hungarians. Mark was really adventuresome and lighthearted. He loved to sail. He loved skiing, fine arts, antiques, architecture, music, bulldogs, piglets, tennis, or simply lounging on the beach. And we made lifelong friends at every overseas post where we served. In essence, Mark was really unconventional, as you've gathered, idealistic, a change agent, a brilliant strategist, an avid reader, writer, and speaker, and an ideas man who made ideas come to life. He had a curiosity and an enthusiasm about people and life. Although he was pragmatic, Mark was really the perennial optimist, and deep down, he was a visionary. And his ultimate vision was a world without dictators. His book, Breaking the Real Axis of Evil, sets forth a paradigm and a target to free the world of dictators peacefully. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to end by saying that Mark left us with the tools to turn this vision, this freedom agenda, into reality. Thank you.